The air in the conference rooms smelled like dry erase markers and desperate ambition. It was 9 in the morning on a Tuesday, the kind of gray Minneapolis morning where the coffee tastes like battery acid. I sat in the back corner, away from the glossy mahogany table where the visionaries sat. I am Gavin Stewart. I am 54 years old. I have a face that people forget 5 seconds after they look at it, and a job title, Vice President of Manufacturing Operations. That sounds boring enough to induce comas at cocktail parties. But I am the reason this company has not been sued into a smoking crater in the ground. We were in the third quarter planning session. At the head of the table sat Bradley Harrington. Bradley was our new chief restructuring officer, manufactured in a lab funded by LinkedIn. He was 28, wore tight suits, and spoke in buzzwords that meant nothing. He had been with the company for 14 months. I had been here for 23 years. He was making 3 times my salary to present a PowerPoint presentation that I had essentially written for him. "We are looking at a quantum leap in revenue," Bradley announced, slapping the whiteboard with the back of his hand. He had the energy of a golden retriever on caffeine. "With the rollout of the new operation strategy, our partnership with our key clients is going to scale vertically. We are talking about a major valuation shift, people. This is the big leagues and the operations are fully locked down." That is when my left eye twitched just a little. A microspasm of professional annoyance. I cleared my throat. It was a dry, quiet sound, but in the acoustic vacuum of the boardroom, it sounded like a gunshot. "Bradley," I said, keeping my voice level. "Just a point of clarification on the operational lockdown." Bradley stopped mid-gesture. He looked at me like I was a printer that had just jammed. "Gavin, we are in a flow state here. Can we park the details in the lot?" "It is not a detail," I said, adjusting my glasses. "You listed the production neural architecture as wholly owned proprietary assets, but the underlying optimization algorithm has a pending flag in the internal audit system. It is not fully assigned to the legacy ledger yet." The room went quiet. The general counsel, a man named Gerald Vance, who had the backbone of a chocolate eclair left on a dashboard in July, looked up from his phone. "Gavin," Bradley sighed, a sound of exaggerated patience. "We have been over this. Legal said we are good. The board is ready to sign. Stop trying to find problems where there are only solutions." "You are killing the vibe." "I am not trying to kill the vibe, Bradley. I am trying to keep us from committing contract fraud. The structural load-bearing wall of that entire deal is at risk. If the assignment chain is not clean, they can freeze the contract." Bradley laughed. It was a sharp and dismissive bark. He looked around the table, inviting the others to join in. A few of the junior vice presidents chuckled nervously, eager to align themselves with the new alpha dog. Behind Bradley, a young woman named Brenda Taylor, 29, stood holding a tablet against her chest like a shield. She stared at the carpet. "This is exactly what I am talking about," Bradley said, turning his back to me. "Old school thinking, obstructionist. We are a rocket ship, Gavin. You are trying to check the tire pressure while we are breaking the atmosphere." I felt the heat rise up my neck. It was not shame, it was anger. The cold, hard anger of a person who knows exactly how the machine works, being lectured by a child who just likes pushing the buttons. Meeting dragged on for another hour. I did not speak again. I just took notes, detailed timestamp notes. I wrote down every promise Bradley made, every risk he waved away, every regulation he called optional guidance. At the end of the meeting, Bradley clapped his hands. "One last thing, housekeeping." He turned his gaze directly to me with a malicious little sparkle. "Effective. Today your role is being restructured," Bradley said, his voice loud enough to carry into the hallway. "We are transitioning you from Vice President of Manufacturing Operations to Shift Supervisor. Your compensation will be adjusted accordingly. A 40% reduction to align with the scope of the new position, from $310,000 a year to $186,000. A cut of $124,000. The silence that followed was horrified. Publicly stripping a senior employee of their role in front of the entire executive team was a power move so aggressive it bordered on sociopathic. "We need team players," Bradley continued, smiling a smile that did not reach his dead shark-like eyes. "Not anchors. Maybe this will motivate you to get on board with the vision." Gerald Vance, the general counsel, did not say a word. He just looked down at his notepad, tracing a circle over and over again with his pen. I felt the blood drain from my face. 23 years, I had worked through the flu, through the death of my wife, making sure their operations were clean. And this man, this tailored suit filled with sawdust and arrogance, was stripping it all away. I did not cry, I did not scream. I stood up. I capped my pen with a decisive click. I gathered my notebook and my tablet. Understood, I said. My voice was steady. Terrifyingly steady. Bradley blinked. Good. Glad we are clear. Crystal, I said. I walked out of the conference room, my shoes clicking a rhythmic beat on the gray industrial carpet. Click, click, click. It sounded like a countdown. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and rode it down to the parking garage alone. The fluorescent lights hummed the same way they had hummed for 23 years. The concrete smelled like oil and cold air. I sat in my truck for exactly 2 minutes. My deceased wife Clara's photo was still clipped to the sun visor. She was laughing in it. Logan. Our son was 11 then, sitting on her lap, squinting into the sun. I pulled out my phone and called George Marshall. He picked up on the second ring. He did not say hello, he said, I have been waiting for this call for about 7 years. George did not rush. Marines do not rush fuses, and George does not rush filings, but he does not waste time either. Tell me exactly what happened, he said. I told him. The conference room, the slide deck, the demotion from vice president of manufacturing operations to shift supervisor, the 40% salary reduction, the 8 people in the room who watched it happen. Brenda Taylor standing behind Bradley holding a tablet like she wished she were anywhere else on earth. And Bradley's laptop open the entire time, his eyes drifting down to it when he delivered the line, like demoting a 23-year veteran, was somewhere between his second and third agenda items. George was quiet for 4 seconds. I could hear him writing. His title, George said, Chief Restructuring Officer. Was it ratified by a full board resolution? No, I said. You are certain. I have read every board resolution for the last 11 years, George. There is no vote authorizing that title. His mother created the position and installed him. 3 directors objected. She overrode them, and he took unilateral action affecting your compensation, title, and duties without your prior written consent. He did. Then Article 7 is live. George made sure I understood Article 7 of the Bradford Precision Alloys Corporate Charter, the Emergency Shareholder Governance Clause. He had read it to me over black coffee in a Columbus diner 8 years ago and said, This is your insurance policy. Pray you never need it. The language is specific. In the event that any officer of the corporation takes unilateral action affecting the compensation, title, or duties of any employee holding a majority stake in the corporation's issued shares without prior written consent of said shareholder, that shareholder may invoke Article 7 to convene an emergency board session within 36 hours for the purpose of reviewing said action and its authorization. Let me explain how a man ends up owning 61% of a $1.8 billion company without anyone on the board noticing. It starts with a pen. Year 1 at Bradford Precision Alloys. The founder, Julian Bradford, walked the foundry floor every Friday. He was 74 then, still sharp. He stopped at my station in November of my first year and watched me calibrate a pour sequence I had redesigned to reduce slag waste by 12%. He did not say anything for a full minute. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and handed me a pen, silver engraved. It said BPA Year 1. Own what you build, son, he told me. Paper without equity is just paper. Julian Bradford died 9 years later. I kept the pen, and I did exactly what he told me to do. It started with the employee stock purchase plan. Bradford Precision Alloys offered shares at a 15% discount to employees who reinvested performance bonuses. Most people took the cash, bought trucks, paid off credit cards. I took the stock every quarter. Every year for 23 years, half a point here, a full point there. It adds up when you are patient and nobody is watching. Then came the private purchases. 3 retiring executives over the span of 14 years each held modest blocks of Bradford Precision Alloys shares. The first was Roy Whitfield, a vice president of procurement who retired 18 years ago. He wanted liquidity for a lake house. I bought his block at a negotiated price. The second was Otis Miller, director of quality assurance 14 years ago. The third was Harvey Ellis, the outgoing chief financial officer 9 years ago. Harvey wanted a clean break. I gave him one. Every transaction was documented. Every transfer was filed. Every disclosure was submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission on time under the name of the Stewart Holdings Trust. The trust was George's idea. George and I served together, same unit, both staff sergeants, both combat engineers. He transitioned to law after discharge, ended up specializing in corporate securities and shareholder rights at a mid-sized firm in Columbus. He is 57 now. He is the only person alive who knows my full ownership position. George set up the Stewart Holdings Trust 22 years ago in my second year at Bradford Precision Alloys. He filed the original structure. He tracked every acquisition. He submitted every Securities and Exchange Commission Form 4 and Schedule 13D filing. When my beneficial ownership crossed the thresholds, all publicly accessible, all sitting in the Edgar database, all legal, all invisible to anyone who did not bother to look. The last time anyone on the Bradford Precision Alloys Board of Directors reviewed the full filings was 10 years ago. By then, I was already past 50%. I own 61% of Bradford Precision Alloys. Market value approximately $1.098 billion. And a 28-year-old with a Wharton Master of Business Administration, a self-appointed title that was never ratified by a full board resolution, and 14 months of PowerPoint consulting experience, had just cut my salary by 40% without asking me, the board, or his mother's own general counsel. "I'll have the filing ready by 6:30 tonight," George said. Emergency shareholder action under Article 7 of the Bradford Precision Alloys Corporate Charter, submitted on behalf of the Stewart Holdings Trust, beneficial owner of 61% of issued shares. The board will be required to convene within 36 hours. That puts us at Thursday morning. Thursday at 10 in the morning if they move fast. And they will move fast once they see what is in the Edgar database. I looked at Clara's photo on the sun visor. "Do it," I said, already started. Click. It was 4:47 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Here is what I did not do in the next 18 hours. I did not call Bradley. I did not call Eleanor Harrington. I did not call anyone at Bradford Precision Alloys. I did not send an email. I did not post anything. I did not update my LinkedIn. I did not walk back into that building and tell anyone what was coming. I drove home. I fed Rex. He is a yellow lab, 11 years old, and he knew something had shifted the moment I walked through the door. Dogs know. He did not bring me his ball. He just sat next to my chair and put his chin on my knee. I poured 3 fingers of bourbon. Not the daily drinker, the good stuff. Blandon's from the bottle Clara gave me the Christmas before she got sick. I had been saving it for something. I sat on the back deck and watched the sky go dark over the foundry district. You could see the Bradford Precision Alloys smokestacks from my house. I had picked the house for that reason 19 years ago. Clara thought I was crazy. "You want to stare at work from your porch," she said. I told her I wanted to see what I was building. She laughed and signed the mortgage papers. I could see the lights in the executive suite from where I sat. 3rd floor, corner office. The one that used to be mine before Bradley moved into it 7 months ago. The lights were still on. Good, let him enjoy it. At 6:30 in the evening, George texted me 2 words: filed. Clock is running. I finished the bourbon, went inside, washed the glass, and set it on the drying rack next to the single plate and single fork from dinner. Then I went to bed. I slept 7 hours straight. First time in months. While I slept, here is what happened. George's filing landed in the corporate secretary's inbox at 6:32 that evening. The corporate secretary, Beatrice Cooper, 58, opened it at 7:15 while eating at her desk. She read the first paragraph twice. Then she picked up her phone and called Gerald Vance, the general counsel. Gerald did not answer. He was at dinner with his wife. Beatrice left a voicemail. "Gerald, we have received an Article 7 filing, emergency shareholder action. You need to call me tonight." Gerald listened to it at 9:40 and called Beatrice back. "Who filed it?" he asked. "An entity called the Stewart Holdings Trust," she replied. "Stewart as in Gavin Stewart. The filing claims beneficial ownership of 61% of issued shares." Gerald Vance was 63 years old and had been general counsel for 9 years. He was competent, careful, and deeply uncomfortable with what Bradley had done to me. Bradley had walked into that conference room with a slide deck and a self-appointed title and restructured the compensation of a 23-year officer of the corporation, without legal review, without board authorization, and without checking who owned the company he was pretending to run. Gerald sat down at his home office desk at 10:15. He opened the Securities and Exchange Commission's Edgar database. He typed Bradford Precision Alloys into the search field. The filings loaded. He started with the most recent Schedule 13D amendment filed 8 months ago. Beneficial owner Stewart Holdings Trust. Percentage of class 61%. He scrolled backward. There were years of filings, Form 4s documenting every acquisition, share transfers from Roy Whitfield, Otis Miller, Harvey Ellis, quarterly purchases through the employee stock plan. Every single one documented, timestamped, filed on schedule. He printed all of it, 47 pages. I know this because Gerald told me later. He said his hand started shaking at page 9. By page 22, he had loosened his tie. By page 38, he had poured himself a glass of bourbon. By page 47, he was sitting very still in his chair, staring at the wall. The filing was immaculate. George Marshall does not make mistakes. George Marshall builds paper trails the way we used to build fortifications. Every angle covered, every approach anticipated, every document cross-referenced and load-bearing. Gerald picked up his phone. It was 11:12 on a Tuesday night. He did not call Bradley. He called Eleanor Harrington. She answered on the 4th ring. "Eleanor, I need you at headquarters first thing tomorrow morning. Your son signed something he should not have," Gerald said. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "Gavin Stewart owns 61% of this company. He has for years. It is in the Securities and Exchange Commission filings. And your son just demoted him without board authorization, without legal review, and without the prior written consent of the majority shareholder." Silence. 5 full seconds. "That is not possible," she said. "I am looking at 47 pages of evidence that says it is," Gerald replied. "Eleanor, that man is an operations manager," she said. "He has been a shareholder for 23 years, Gerald said. "Eleanor, he owns more of this company than every board member combined, including you." Another silence, longer this time. "Article 7 has been invoked," Gerald continued. "We are legally required to convene the board within 36 hours. That puts us at Thursday morning at 10. I need every director notified by 8 tomorrow morning. Eleanor, I also need to inform you that your son's title, Chief Restructuring Officer, was never ratified by a full board resolution, which means his authority to restructure anyone's compensation is legally questionable on its face. Independent of the ownership issue, Eleanor did not speak for nearly 10 seconds. When she did, her voice was different, quieter. "Does Bradley know?" she asked. "No," Gerald said. "Do not tell him. I will handle it." But she did not handle it. Not that night. Because while Eleanor Harrington sat in her bedroom processing the fact that she had helped her son kick a hornet's nest, the size of a $1.098 billion trust fund, Bradley was on Instagram. His story posted at 11:47 that night showed a glass of champagne on his desk, the desk that used to be mine. The caption read, "Day 1 of the new era. First move made." He had no idea the board had already been convened. I woke up Wednesday morning at 5:30, made black coffee, fed Rex, stood on the back deck in the early dark, and watched the Bradford Precision Alloys smokestacks against the gray sky. My phone was on the kitchen table. I had not looked at it since George's text. When I finally picked it up at 6:50 in the morning, I had 14 missed calls. 3 from numbers I did not recognize, 2 from Gerald Vance's office line, 4 from Gerald's cell, 1 from Eleanor Harrington directly, and 4 from Bradley Reed Harrington. I did not return a single one. Instead, I poured a second cup of coffee, sat down in the kitchen chair, and opened a text from Martha Higgins. It had come in at 6:18. "Gavin, something is happening," the text read. Gerald Vance arrived at 6. Eleanor Harrington pulled in right behind him. "Bradley is not here yet. Nobody will tell us anything, but the executive floor is locked down. Conference room Alpha is being set up for a full board session." I typed back 3 words. "Thanks, Martha." At 6:40 that morning, Gerald Vance had walked Eleanor Harrington through every filing, every share acquisition, every Form 4, and every Schedule 13D amendment. When he got to the trust structure, Eleanor sat down. George Marshall, she said, his attorney, former Marine, same unit as Gavin. He has been managing this trust for 22 years. It is bulletproof, Eleanor. Every disclosure filed on time, every threshold properly reported. This is not a technicality. This is the largest shareholder in the company, asserting rights we didn't know he had. Because nobody on this board has reviewed the ownership filings since 2014. Eleanor's hands were flat on the table, perfectly still. My son demoted a man who owns 61% of this company, she said. Yes, Gerald replied. Without asking me, without asking you, without asking anyone. Yes. Using a title I created for him that was never formally ratified. Yes. She closed her eyes, held them closed for 3 seconds. Convene the board, she said, Thursday at 10. Gerald nodded. There is one more thing, he said. Bradley posted on Instagram last night. Champagne on Gavin's old desk, captioned, First move made. Eleanor opened her eyes. Get that off the internet, she said. It has already been screenshotted, Gerald replied. It is in the filing appendix. Eleanor Harrington, 61 years old, board chair for 11 years, looked at Gerald Vance and said nothing. Then she stood up, walked to the window of his office, and stared down at the parking garage where Bradley's car was now pulling into his reserved spot. He does not know yet, she said. No, Gerald replied. Do not tell him until Thursday. Let him walk into that boardroom thinking he is still in charge. Gerald paused. Eleanor, are you sure? My son needs to learn what a room looks like when it is already decided, she said. Meanwhile, I sat in my kitchen and watched Rex sleep on the floor by the back door. My phone buzzed again. Bradley's name, the 5th call. I picked it up, looked at the screen for 2 seconds, and set it back down on the table face down. The phone kept buzzing through Wednesday. 6 more calls from Bradley. 2 more from Eleanor's office. 1 from a number I traced later to Beatrice Cooper's desk line. I did not pick up any of them. I spent Wednesday doing exactly 3 things. I drove to the hardware store and bought a new hinge for the back gate that had been sticking since October. I replaced it. It took 40 minutes. Then I drove to the diner on Route 9, the one with the vinyl booths and the waitress who has been there longer than I have been at Bradford Precision Alloys. I ordered black coffee and a turkey club, and I sat in the booth by the window and ate lunch like a man with nowhere to be. Rex rode in the passenger seat both trips. He likes hardware stores. At 3:15 in the afternoon, George called. I picked up on the first ring. Board is confirmed for tomorrow at 10, he said. All 9 directors notified and attending. Good, I said. Gerald Vance's office sent the formal notice to every director. At 11 this morning, George continued. Attach the Article 7 filing and the complete ownership documentation, every page. So they have all seen it, I said. They have all seen it. I spoke to Gerald directly an hour ago. He is not hostile, Gavin. He is embarrassed. He told me he has been general counsel for 9 years and never once pulled the ownership filings. He said he assumed the institutional knowledge was current. It was not. No, it was not. George paused. Gavin, he said. Yeah, I replied. Wear the good suit, he said. I almost smiled. Copy that too. Thursday morning, October 17th, at 9:22 I put on the charcoal suit Clara picked out for me 11 years ago. She said it made me look like I owned something. I adjusted the tie in the bathroom mirror. Navy blue simple knot. I slipped Julian Bradford's pen into my inside breast pocket. The engraving caught the light. BPA Year 1. I drove to Bradford Precision Alloys and parked in the main lot where the floor workers park. I had been parking there for 23 years. The building looked the same as it always did. Limestone and glass, the smokestacks running behind it. Same font Julian approved in 1971. I walked through the front door at 9:41. The security guard, Leroy Jenkins, 62, who had been working that desk for 16 years, looked up from his monitor and did something he had never done before. He stood up. Mr. Stewart, he said. Morning, Leroy, I replied. He nodded, the kind of nod that carries weight. George Marshall was already in the 3rd floor corridor outside conference room Alpha. Navy suit, black briefcase. You ready? He asked. I have been ready for 7 years, I replied. Then let us go own a boardroom, he said. The doors to conference room Alpha were frosted glass and mahogany. The same room I had been demoted in 48 hours earlier. But today, the room was different. There were nameplates at every seat. 9 directors were already seated, every chair occupied. Gerald Vance sat at the far left, a stack of documents in front of him, thick enough to stop a bullet. Beatrice Cooper sat behind him with a legal pad. Eleanor Harrington sat at the head of the table in her usual position, as board chair, her hands flat on the surface, her face perfectly composed and perfectly gray, and at the opposite end of the table from Eleanor, there was one empty chair with a nameplate, Stewart Holdings Trust Majority Shareholder. I sat down, placed Julian Bradford's pen on the table in front of me, and folded my hands. The clock on the wall read 9:58. At 9:59, the door opened and Bradley Harrington walked in. He was wearing a slim-cut navy suit. His laptop was tucked under his arm. He walked in with the stride of a man who believed he controlled the room. He saw the name plates, the directors, and me sitting in the majority shareholder chair. He looked at Eleanor. "Mom, what is this?" he asked. Eleanor did not look at him. "Sit down, Bradley," she said. Her voice was flat. He sat. Gerald Vance stood. "This emergency session has been convened pursuant to Article 7 of the Bradford Precision Alloys Corporate Charter," Gerald said. "The filing was submitted Tuesday evening at 6:32 by the Stewart Holdings Trust on behalf of its sole beneficiary, Gavin Stewart. The filing asserts that an officer of the corporation took unilateral action affecting the compensation, title, and duties of an employee holding a majority stake in the corporation's issued shares without prior written consent of said shareholder." Bradley opened his laptop. "Close the laptop, Bradley," Eleanor said. Her voice was flat. He closed it slowly. Gerald continued. "The Stewart Holdings Trust holds 61% of Bradford Precision Alloys issued shares. This position has been documented in continuous Securities and Exchange Commission filings, including Form 4 and Schedule 13D amendments for 22 years. Every filing is publicly accessible through the Edgar database." Gerald picked up the top sheet from his stack. At the current company valuation of $1.8 billion, Mr. Stewart's 61% stake represents approximately $1.098 billion in market value. Bradley looked at me, shocked. "Those filings cannot be," he stammered. "They are bulletproof," George Marshall said from behind me. His voice was calm and level. "Every threshold properly reported, every transfer legally executed, 22 years of immaculate documentation. I built this structure myself." Bradley looked at Eleanor. "Mom," he said. Eleanor did not look up. Gerald set the paper down. "Additionally, the title of Chief Restructuring Officer, under which Mr. Harrington took the action in question, was never ratified by a full board resolution. It was created by executive memo and installed without a formal vote, which means," Gerald said, "that Mr. Harrington's authority to restructure the compensation of any officer of this corporation is legally questionable on its face." Bradley's face had lost 2 shades of color. "This is a clerical issue," Bradley said. "A filing discrepancy." Eleanor's voice was quiet. "Stop talking." He stopped. Gerald looked around the table. "A motion is before the board to reverse all restructuring actions taken by Bradley Harrington under the unratified title of Chief Restructuring Officer and to remove Mr. Harrington from his position effective immediately. The motion has been submitted by the majority shareholder. I will call the vote." One by one, every director stated their vote out loud. All 9 voted in favor, including Eleanor Harrington. Unanimous. The room was silent for exactly 4 seconds. Then Gerald spoke. "The motion carries. Mr. Harrington, your position is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect personal belongings. Your access credentials will be revoked within the hour." Bradley stood up, his chair rolling backward. He looked at me. "You sat there on Tuesday and said, you understand," he spat. I looked at him. "I did understand," I said. "Better than you." Bradley stood there for another 3 seconds, then walked out, followed by Leroy Jenkins. The frosted glass doors closed. Click. The board voted unanimously to appoint me Chief Executive Officer. My compensation was restored to $310,000 and restructured upward to reflect the new role. Within 30 days, the board approved a $47 million special dividend distribution. My 61% stake entitled me to $28.7 million of that payout, deposited into the Stewart Holdings Trust account on a Tuesday. Within 60 days, minority shareholders filed a $67 million lawsuit against Bradley Harrington personally, alleging unauthorized restructuring actions. Eleanor Harrington resigned from the board 1 week after the vote. Her 4.2% stake remains, but she will never sit at that table again. Bradley's Instagram post of the champagne glass is still in the filing appendix, screenshotted and entered into the legal record. His first move was his last. Martha Higgins was promoted to Director of Floor Operations. When I told her, she stood in my office doorway and said, "About damn time." I agreed. I kept the corner office. I put Clara's photo on the desk, the same one from the sun visor, and I put a new nameplate on the door. It says Chief Executive Officer, but that is not the one that matters. The one that matters is the small brass plate on my desk that says Stewart. Sunday after the board vote, Logan called. "Dad, you sound different," he said, "less like you are waiting for something." I leaned back in my chair. Rex was lying at my feet. The smokestacks were visible against the evening sky. "Maybe I am not waiting," I said. "Are you going to come to the game next Saturday? We have a scrimmage, Engineering League softball." "I will be there," I said. "Really?" he asked. "Really," I replied. He was quiet. "Good. That is really good, Dad." I hung up, sat there for a while. Rex shifted his weight. The bourbon was on the side table, 3 fingers. Not the daily drinker, the Blandons, Clara's bottle. There was still enough for a few more evenings like this one. I took a sip and watched the sky go dark over the Foundry District. Bradley Harrington told a boardroom I was just an operations manager. He was right about one thing. I know every floor in that building. He just did not know I also own the building. Sometimes power does not announce itself. It does not post champagne on Instagram or name-drop Wharton in every meeting. Sometimes it just shows up every quarter, every year, half a point here, a full point there. For 23 years, patient, quiet, documented, and when the fuse finally reaches the charge, it does not make a sound until everything is already changed.